Like, what happens when you're married to someone and 15, 20 years in, you're like, I cannot believe that you think like that. Or I cannot believe that you agree with this or you agree with that.
Right.
I don't want to clock in for the rest of my life. Resumes, LinkedIn, I want all of that gone. In the next 6 months. I want to be free from all of it. And I do believe that the personal pull comes from the values. And I think that could be why it could be triggering, because it's like sometimes these people, they represent a set of values that you're like, I didn't know that. If you align with these values, then what does that mean
about us,
about you and who you are and how you think? But marriage is the craziest mirror that you will ever have. My big mirror moment was me thinking I was an amazing listener. Oh, why is he playing with me? And then
am I a mug?
Welcome to
Marriage Pinnacle's Chats from the Peak.
Where God's favorites link up.
My name is Dr. Lara.
And I'm Memi.
And this is Chats from the Peak.
Woo-hoo.
Thank you for joining us for another episode here on Chats from the Peak. What we do is we talk about all things marriage and relationships. And we talk about navigating the highs. Embracing the highs and navigating the lows, because it comes with every marriage and relationships. And we do that from a clinical lens, a cultural lens, and a bit of, real life examples in there.
Which is my favorite part. And marriage is not dead. It's not hard. It's just a climb.
Just a climb. So if you see yourself in any one of those lenses, cultural lens, the clinical lens, just you're here for some real life examples, then stay tuned. If you're new here, we want to thank you for joining us. To our Peak Seekers, welcome back. As always, we want you to like, comment, and subscribe. And we just want to thank you for rocking with us. Like, we appreciate all the love, all the feedback that we get. We don't take it for granted. Our community, the people who have come into our community, we're super, super grateful.
Our day ones,
we appreciate y'all. We do.
Y'all.
And so today, we're going to be talking about something that comes with marriage, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it really is just this idea of navigating and transitioning through the highs and the lows.
Yeah.
Period.
Like, we talk about it a lot in our, navigating the lows and enjoying the peaks and enjoying the highs. Like, it's kind of like our thing with, the pinnacle of marriage and talking about the ups and downs, but we never really get into what that's like and how to actually push through those times.
Absolutely. So what is our...
the way our show is, if you're new here, we kind of start off with internet chokeholds, where we talk about current events, things that we're seeing on social media, things that have happening in our sphere. And then we go into relationship gems, which is when you pull out your notebook, take notes, and we give you some takeaways. And that's also where we kind of put in some of our real life experience. And every now and then we have listener letters.
The whole episode anyway,
I think so. You're right. We do talk about what we go through day to day throughout the episode. And then we also sometimes have a listener letter. We are low on those, so we need you to go to the link in bio and get us some listener letters, guys. So today, our internet chokehold, we are in the throes of election season, right? So all around you, we're hearing about who's running for president, and this is the United States presidential election for those of our listeners that live in other countries. So right now, it's such a tense time in our country, because this is probably some of the most polarizing and divisive political climate that we've had in a very long time. It's been that way for a while, but it just continues on. And the reason is because there are very heavy topics on the ballots this year, and people are either over here or they're over there. Mm-hmm. A lot of us are in the middle, so a lot of people are in the middle, but for some reason, we've gotten very polarized as a country. So it's not a political podcast. We don't really get into it, but we do encourage you all to go register to vote. Do your research on what's most important to you, which topics touch you and your family the most, and vote according to that. And just do your little part to let your voice be heard.
Absolutely.
And so why we're even bringing this up is because I saw a post about all these wives that lived in like red states, and talking about, am I able to vote? Are my ballots a secret? Like, will my husband find out who I'm voting for? Because of some of these topics that women identify with more, and husbands don't agree. So what I found that interesting, because I'm just like, wow, like imagine being married to someone for 20 plus years, and you guys have always voted the same. You've always kind of seen eye to eye on topics, but not because of anything that you've done as a couple, but because the world is changing, but because the political climate is changing, and you and your partner now are bumping heads. That is, like, we're hearing about that a lot, not just in the marital space, but in, like, people talk about, like, they can't go to the family functions anymore without their uncle spewing,
talking crazy,
talking crazy all day. And it's like, like, get off WhatsApp, get off Facebook. But this is real, And so it's like, what happens when you're married to someone and 15, 20 years in, you're like, I cannot believe that you think like that. Or I cannot believe that you agree with this, or you agree with that.
Right.
I just thought that was such an interesting thing for us to kind of put on the table today, because we used to have the same belief systems. We used to vote the same, but now we don't. So how do you resolve that? And that's kind of what we're getting into today. So my first question is, have you had any major transitions in your life that you feel were so different from who you are when you got married? Like, would the Lara that was engaged look at Lara today and be like, girl, I can't believe you doing that now, or I can't believe you into that now, or?
Well, I would say not necessarily in a negative way, but I would say that definitely just the growth I feel like I've had, just in I feel like I've always known Christ. I feel like I've always, and interestingly enough, like when Tola and I were engaged, he was living in Michigan, I was still here, and here is Maryland for those of you who are new here. And no, he was in Iowa. Sorry, he was in Iowa, and I was in Maryland. And I was always involved in my church. I feel like that's always been the case. And that has never changed. But I feel like from that to now where we are, I just feel like my level of engagement, my level of commitment, my relationship has absolutely changed. And I think that's very different, not necessarily in a bad way, of course, but it's completely it is different,
transformed.
It is transformed, absolutely. And I feel like it has required a lot more of my time, which not necessarily. One thing Tola was gonna say is, like, are you always busy? Like, you always busy with something.
Booked and busy.
You're always doing something, right? So, like, I don't think he's never known me to not always have something on my plate, but I think that a lot of the things that are on my plate now have to do with church and ministry. Right. You know what I mean? And I think that is completely different. And I think navigating that has been different, because I think I've been called to certain things in certain spaces that he probably didn't think was ever going to happen. And it's to the benefit, I think, of our family. Of course. But I think it definitely looks different. And even me, so cool. Even me, I was like, okay.
I would have never thought that.
No, I don't want to thought that.
I started calling her Deaconess Lara. Minister Lara. I gotta be careful how I say that now.
Like, I just low key, I just never and again, like, I've always been involved in church. Always.
But it's like heightened.
But it is heightened, absolutely. And it is very and I also feel it as well. Like, I feel like a sense of responsibility for the things that I say, for the things that I do. And that's not to say that I didn't before, but I 120% feel it now. Like, I'm very cognizant of the spaces I'm in. I'm very cognizant of the things that I say and what I represent. Even our brand. Like, our brand, at the end of the day, we are not necessarily a Christian podcast, but it is
represents
very much who we are at the core.
Correct.
You know what I mean? And so that to me is where I don't think I expected that. I felt like it would. And I feel like that's also growth, right, on my part, because as I'm talking, I guess it's like I'm saying it as I'm thinking it. I think that just shows the level of relationship I had at one point versus what I have now. Because before I felt like maybe Christ was just a part of who I was, as opposed to he is who I am.
Yes.
If that
like
makes sense.
Holistically,
as opposed to like a part.
Yes.
If that makes sense.
That does make sense. That does make sense. So like, how do you feel like you brought your partner along? So he didn't feel, because because we've heard of that, right? It's like, my wife is now, she's always in church, and now she wants you to be holy roller like her, but me, I'm just, so it's like we see that, it pulls away, because women typically are in most churches. You see mostly women. That's just facts. That is just a statistical fact across the board. It doesn't matter what color, creed. Women are typically more religious than men. So it's like, you will see that where the wife is in church Monday through Saturday. Not saying you are. I'm exaggerating. But Monday through Saturday, and the husband is like at home. Like when I was younger, my mom, we went to church 4 times a week, and my dad would be at home on the couch drinking beer, watching football. It wasn't until we were a little bit older that my dad started coming along, and now he's a pastor. But it's kind of like, for the longest time, my dad wanted no parts of it. So it's interesting. So like, how do you bring Tala along in that journey with you, in that transition?
It's interesting because like I said, I feel like the reason why even us exploring and like leaving our former church, I think it was overwhelming for Tella, because I was so like involved. And us moving back home to Maryland, I felt like it was a lot. It was just like, Lara, and I felt like he felt he wasn't included. So when we made the decision to move on from my old home church to finding a new church together, I was really intentional about making sure that he felt comfortable wherever we went. Right? He knew off the bat I was gonna serve. Like, period. He knew that, which I think was never an issue. But my hope and my prayer was that he was going to want to serve as well. Right? And so for me, it wasn't necessarily like a conversation, but what I did, I remember having a conversation, I think back on it now, it knows the Holy Spirit. I was like, Lara, wherever we go next, let Tala be the one to make the decision. As opposed to me, where I was just like, we moving back to Maryland. Clearly, like, that's where we going. That's where we met. That's where you got me. That's where we going back to. Period. Like, easy. That's the family church. That's where we going back to. And I did not consider, like, there's other factors at play here. It's not just about comfortability. It's like, where am I going to grow spiritually? Where am I going to get fed? All of these things are important. And so I remember having that conversation with myself, like, Lara, wherever we go next, he needs to be the person. I want to make sure he is comfortable. And God willing, like, we found our home, we found our church now, and he's absolutely comfortable, right? Now, granted, are we still on different levels where, like, Lara, you still doing 55 million activities?
But that's personality, right?
But that's personality as well,
that's kind of like, whatever you do, you're going to give it everything.
And I think that, like, but the thing is, and that's the same regard for Tola, because Tola gives 120%, right? He will be the first there and the last to leave. But I think also he just is a person where, and I don't think it's a boundaries thing for me and him, but I just know him. He is more strict with his boundaries, and like he needs time to recharge. That's what I know about Tola. Like, he needs time to recharge, but when he is there, he's everything there. He is absolutely there. And so I feel like I love that for us now, because it is not just Lara's church, it's our church. And your kids get to see that, and our kids see it. Like, literally, Tola is at church 6:30 in the morning. That's crazy. Girl, and Levi will say, Daddy, I'm going with you. Aww. Do you know what I mean? So, like, my kids have grown up. Like, Zion, we started the church when Zion was 3 months.
Yeah, she was a baby.
Yeah, 3 months. And so she never knew a time when she was waking up early for church.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So like, I love the fact that the family has gotten
It's
to
kind of growing with you.
us.
That's
like,
beautiful.
We're all growing together.
I think that is what it is about, you know?
Yeah.
And that's such a good example of like growing in your faith.
Yeah.
But there's so many other examples that we can, you know, touch on, but it's like I think as a individual, like you understand that you're growing and you understand that you're transitioning. It is important to like what you said about let Tala choose the church, because I know that wherever I'm going, I want to serve. I know that wherever I'm going, I want to give. I'm going to be a part. So I need him to also be comfortable so that I'm allowed to be a part, and so that I don't have any issues or it's not a problem because he's also comfortable. And I feel like that exact mindset can be applied to so many different transitions, right? It can be whatever it is. You're growing. You want to travel for work. Bring everybody in on that decision. Needs to be a part of the conversation and the decision. Because ultimately, yes, it is for you, but it impacts everyone.
Say it again. It literally is for you, but it impacts everyone. Like, there are casualties to all of our decisions.
Absolutely.
You know, like I think about such a very like benign example, right? So Tala is let's talk about a year ago. A year ago, Tala was the person doing drop off and pick up because his job was right by the school. Let's be clear. It's not because I was a deadbeat and didn't want to do it. I'm just saying. So Tala would do. There are people who would question why I don't do drop off and pick up. But anyway, but his job is right by their schools, right? And so he would do drop off and pick up, right? However, the minute Tala was given the opportunity to go on work for travel, there will be an impact.
Yes.
So this is the example I'm trying to make, right?
Yes.
Tala's decision to say he's doing travel directly impacts me.
Correct.
So what Tala does is, Lara, these are the dates I'm going to do work from travel. Is this okay?
Yeah.
Because he doesn't know if I've already scheduled an appointment or whatever, because that will directly impact who is picking up and dropping off our kids. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so he includes me in that by checking in with me to say, not just agreeing to do the work from travel and then figuring it out later, but he's like, okay, these are the dates. I'm going to be gone from Wednesday to Friday. Does this work for all of the stuff that you have going on?
Correct. That's good.
Do you know what I mean?
Because that's a great example, because a lot of some I don't know about Tala's case, but sometimes those are opportunities, right? Like like if I go to this travel, I get to network, I get to meet different people, or they get to know that I'm a team player. I get to even just get new experiences for myself, right? So that's part of Tala's career growth, right? And so that's
which is important
to him, and by way of that, it's also important to you.
Absolutely.
So it's like being included in that conversation. It takes away that bitterness or like who you like. How dare you? Like you didn't even inform me. It's communication, communication, and like that risk, and like. I don't want to get into the gems yet, but yes, all parts and parcels of it. And like my last question on that is like, how could things have gone?
You want to answer any of these questions? Oh, that's crazy. That's wild. It's like you're interviewing me. That's wild.
Sorry.
Okay, ask no questions.
Okay, ask me. Ask me.
Number one, have you had any major transitions? Let's start there, because I definitely felt like I was on a hot seat. I'm like, so
she was like, wait, this is not feeling comfortable.
It's not feeling like a conversation. It's feeling like an interview.
My bad, y'all. Because y'all know we like conversations. I got carried away because I was really enjoying that story.
Really feeling like Oprah. It was like Oprah just now.
I was really locked in. Okay, so for me,
feel like you have any transitions, anything, or should we go back to the interview?
Lara, please give me a break. Okay, I would say for me, it was kind of like being like a businesswoman. Like that's something that I don't think me or Dapo ever thought, because we used to both say like we're not entrepreneurial. Like we don't mind the 9 to 5. Like let me know when my check is coming. I'm good. But it's just like. After the pandemic, I know so many people had so many transitions and so many light bulb moments during the pandemic, but definitely during the pandemic, I was sitting there and I'm just like, I don't think I can do this the rest of my life. I don't think I can do this the rest of my life. And the way my mind works is I don't ever have a shortage of business ideas. I have thousands.
Got an email for every business.
You don't want to know.
Literally, like, which one am I going to use today?
You do not want to see my Gmail roster.
No, literally.
I have like 10.
I'm sure they think you are a bot farm. They gotta think
You
you're a bot
don't want
farm.
to know. I have Facebook pages. I have Instagram pages.
You have
I have so
And
many
TikTok.
ideas. So it wasn't until the pandemic, and I was just like, what's stopping me? Let me try to sell toys on Amazon. Let me try to make jewelry. Sell jewelry.
Dog,
Like, I have been down so many different paths. And so I'm really happy about this one, about this business that we're doing, and also like my bridal styling that I do with my sister-in-law. So I'm like, Modish bride in the building. And if you're getting married and you need some looks, you know, hit me up on the side.
Come on now.
We'll take care of you. But those two, I think, because they are extremely time consuming, right? It does require sacrifice. I have to go to a photo shoot with the bride, or I have to come here and record. Dapper got to do drop off and pick ups today.
Yeah.
So it's like these are things that I think when we got married, I wasn't the girl that was in college and doing like business plans. I was not. I was not doing any of that. It wasn't. This is very recent for me. And just realizing that, okay, I don't want to clock in for the rest of my life. I just simply don't. Like, I want to be done with kind of all of this, like in the next like 5-6 years. It's enough. It's enough. Yeah. We're done. Resumes, LinkedIn, I want all of that gone in the next 6 years.
No, we're going to keep the LinkedIn just so they know what we're doing.
You can keep the LinkedIn for your stuff, but I don't need no LinkedIn. That could go. I want no parts. I want to be free from all of it. So it's like that's not something that we ever would think. Like, we were very much on the path of like max the 401, like let's get the 401k looking good, and then 50 and late 50s, early 60s, we start winding down, you know, start traveling more. You know, that was kind of the concept. But now I'm like 45 me.
40 me?
40 something me.
40 something me.
Clock me out.
And
let me be done with all of this. So, and it's like, but like trying to transition into that and coming up with a plan and like, what are we doing investment wise? Like, there are so many things that need to be in place before that can happen. And I think like for me, like bringing Dapper along on that, because I still don't think he's like, I feel like he's still kind of the same. Like, I don't think he's really like into the whole entrepreneurial yet. I think he's like, I really like what I do. I enjoy it.
What I love about our husbands, right? You know, you always want to say.
I know. Sorry, y'all.
But what I love about our husbands, because they're very similar in this regard, that they provide the stability and allow us to go be chaotic.
They do.
And chaotic, not in a bad way.
Yeah, chaotic is perfect.
Go ahead and do that. Try that. Do this. Put it here.
Chaotic is perfect.
Yeah. And I honestly am grateful for that, because everybody don't got that. You know what I mean? And like, if we didn't have husbands who were stable, loved their careers, loved their jobs, we would all be chaotic together.
Yes. And that's having that kind of stability. Right? It definitely allows us to do the things that we do on the side. But I feel like having that conversation with him, he's like I told you, like we had car issues yesterday, and I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna make it to recording, and like, cause how he gotta get the kids, and I was like, babe, like, how am I gonna get? He was like, I don't care, like I'll call my mom, like my mom will come get it. I was like,
that's crazy.
Like, like you see how the texting, I was like, Lara, so
you're like, so I'm like, so are we recording or not? Like, I was like, you're not telling me what we're doing.
I didn't know yet, cause I'm like, like I don't know. And so I was telling him like, babe, like I know you gotta get the kids. Like we only got we're down to one card for the weekend. He was like, I'll call my mom. I was like, what if she's busy? He was like, I'll call my dad. Like
easy.
He was like, then he just turned around and kept walking. Like it wasn't even. I'm just sitting here like, so but what? He was like,
pick up your job.
Like,
it's okay.
Get in the house.
Problem solved.
Like this is not a fire alarm. Like grow up. And so but just like that support. Like when we're like, oh, married Pinnacle. Well, what are y'all talking about? He was watching every episode. So it's just like knowing that he's supporting me through the process is it makes these kind of transitions easy.
Honestly, like it's so crazy, because I feel like they're not necessarily like the front facing, but they're very much back facing in our business.
Extremely.
Y'all need to get this picture together. Y'all are not centered. I'm like, all right, tell her not too much.
Like, y'all not gonna play with us. Tell her not gonna play with us.
He's like, yeah, the sound wasn't that great. I'm like, okay, husband, okay.
I remember Dapper felt the cars. He was like, I'm kind of flimsy, ain't it? I was like, Lara, we need to get this car stronger.
We need to get anti-scratch on the cards. Yeah, literally.
Check to the suppliers, like, hey guys,
can we please make these a little bit more durable, please?
Because they're not gonna play with us.
Yeah, and I feel like that is a blessing.
Yeah.
But I think also helps with the transition, right?
It does.
And I think that goes back to like flexibility because everybody doesn't have that. And who I married is who I want to be 20, 30 years.
Exactly.
And that is not
exactly
realistic.
Like let's talk about a stay-at-home wife. Like you get married, you're a stay-at-home wife, you're assuming you're going to be a stay-at-home mom, you start having kids and you realize
I don't like this too much. Put
me back in the office. Take me out of this.
Let's do part-time.
No thanks. Because I've heard of that happening. And so like that's a huge transition because your husband assumed that you were going to stay home with the kids and that we were never going to have to pay for childcare. Yeah. So how do you navigate that? Like I had a friend that wanted to go back to work and her husband's like, you can go back to work, but you pay daycare.
Oh, really?
That broke my heart.
Ooh, wow.
Because that's tough, right? Like that is a tough conversation. How do you navigate that? Like I don't want to do this. Yeah. I need help. I don't want to be locked up in the house with them all day. This is not for me. I thought it was.
Moms, y'all are the real.
I'm telling y'all have such a place in my heart.
Zion come home for 2 hours, and I'm like, why is she home
go to bed
early?
Good night.
Go and take a nap, girl.
Good night.
Right now.
Good night. Go back, take a bath, and go to bed.
She comes home
on
midday.
10. No.
And I'm like,
I respect those women.
Aftercare? Yeah. And why don't they offer it to my daughter?
Yeah.
Because she needs.
I'm gonna pay.
It's just they don't offer it because I'm like,
oh god.
Stay-at-home moms, MVPs.
MVPs.
Girl. Okay, so how do you feel like? So obviously you answered how you feel like Dapo's along. Do you feel like outside of like business, do you feel like there's been any other like transitions that you've had?
I think that's a positive transition, right? I think on the negative side was probably my grief, like my grief era. That was a negative transition, and that was bad.
And before you delve into it, I think that just goes to show, right? A lot of times when people make changes, it is because of life circumstances, right?
Correct.
And the thing is, as much as we would love to plan and love to be ahead of the curve, you can't be when something is unexpected. And so you don't know how you're going to act. You don't know how you're going to feel. You don't know how you're going to maneuver in a situation. Yeah, talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I won't go too deep because we talked about it in my grief episode, but just that transition of me being like the happy-go-lucky Memi, the light bright, like that's what would describe me as like when I light up a room when I walk in, like being that person. Period. Thank you.
You're supposed to say you too, but
okay,
you too, Lara.
It's fine. We both do. That's how we get along. That's how we're besties. but like for him, it was like that time I was like more of like a dark cloud versus bright light, Right. And so I like that was tough, right? Like, and thank God it was a temporary and not permanent. But it's like a couple years that we were kind of dealing with that, and
in waves,
exactly, in waves, and I don't know, it was just some, like you said, unexpected, so it wasn't something that we could prepare for. I've never had to grieve like that, and so he's lost people really close to him, and so to him, his grief looks a lot different than mine, a lot different than mine. So if it's easy to have that expectation of like, girl, stand up, you know what I'm saying? Like stand up, like I need you back. And so that was something that we had to kind of navigate together, and like especially like the fallout around it, and I guess move through, and just and him understanding that that this was not permanent. I think helped, and and me understanding how it was affecting everyone else and want to put more effort into getting better.
And it's so sad, unfortunately, right, that grief can break up marriages.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
oh, yeah.
Grief absolutely.
Like the book we read, Before I Let Go.
Yeah. That grief can absolutely tear marriages apart, right? Yeah. And so just understanding and having the spouse that you have who allows you the space to grieve, but then gently let you know, like, I still need you here.
Yeah, like, come back, girl.
Come on back, girl.
Yeah.
And then also you too on the receiving end, being able to take that and adjust accordingly.
And adjust. So it's like, I love what you said, because it wasn't just one person making a decision. Right. It was so many different factors.
Absolutely.
It was
at any point.
At any point, right? Yeah. It was him being gentle enough to say it in a way where, even though it hurt, it shocked me up. Yeah. And then me not taking it so personal to where it broke me down more. Yeah. But instead, like, okay, girl, wake it up. Time to step it up. Get the help you need and get to a better place. Yeah. It's like both sides. And absolutely. That's something that we harbor on so much, because in marriage, like, I think I said this on here before, but I think it was Quicksilver and Ashley, like, someone was asking them how did they have so much longevity in their marriage, and they were like, both of us never wanted to leave at the same time. And that was so good to me, because it's like, having one person that wants to fight is enough to bring the other person along.
It's the truth.
You know, but it's like, if both of you are done
to that place,
you know,
it's a scary place to be.
It's scary.
And as a therapist, right? That is the part where I'm like, I will always say this. I say this to couples as well as I say this to, like, individual clients, right? If you're both giving 125%, and you still at the end of the day find yourselves at a, like, this is a no-go. Not to say I'm ever going to be comfortable, because I'm always wanting people to fight another day. Yeah. But you have got to tell me that you have given it 125%. Both. Yeah. And you saw no movement in the needle. It's highly unlikely. But because, again, pride, resentment, ego, all of these things, unresolved pain, trauma, all of these things have now compounded why you're like, let me get out of this situation. This happiness is unbearable. We talked about happiness in another episode, but this happiness is unbearable, even though it's fleeting, and I got to get out now. And that is the difference. And I think that, like, when we're able to get to a space where we're both going to fight, despite of how painful it is, despite of how it might feel, despite of how, how tired or whatever the case is, that is how we get through transitions. And I think that even goes back to, like, the election, right? You can have whatever political views you want, right? And again, like we talked about, this is not a political podcast, right? However, am I respectful of your viewpoints? Yep. I don't have to agree. Yep. I can think a candidate is better. I can think a party is better, whatever the case may be. But can I respect your viewpoints and coexist in a space where I don't necessarily agree with you, but I'm not berating you for your choices. I'm not downing you for your choices. And I think that that's, unfortunately, when we get into the political tussle, that's what happens. Yes. You want me to agree with your viewpoints. So bad. And so you're downing mine. And that is why we're not seeing eye to eye. Because the thing is, like, I don't get into, me and you talk about this all the time. I don't get into it, but I do believe that, like, we can find common ground. Yes. You know what I'm saying? And at the end of the day, 4 years is gonna come and 4 years is gonna go. Every time. And obviously we would hope it's in a better situation than we started. Yeah. Obviously that's the hope. But my thing is, it goes back to happiness. It goes back to the idea of happy. It's only fleeting. Yeah. Long-lasting effects. Don't get me wrong. Long-lasting effects. Yeah. But at the end of the day, this is not a permanent situation. It's not. Yeah. And unfortunately, people, when it comes to politics, it becomes so personal. It becomes personal, and I do believe that the personal
pull comes from the values.
Oh, yeah.
And that's something that we talk about a lot as well,
absolutely.
right? And I think that could be why it could be triggering, because it's like sometimes these people, they represent a set of values that you're like, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so do you align with
right? Do you align with those values? Like,
that's good.
if you align with these values, then what does that mean
about us,
about you and who you are and how you think?
True.
But respect is still important. That doesn't change that fact, right? It doesn't change the fact, and respect is actually our first gem. It is to respect your spouse. Tell me what it means to me.
All right, that's enough.
Okay, all right. But respecting that, right? And then if the values are different, then you talk about that.
Yeah.
Like when we talk about the why and getting to the heart of the matter, I'm not mad at you because you're voting for him or her. I'm concerned about what that means in your values. Because I didn't know you got down like that.
For real?
That's
you believe that?
That's who you rolling with? Okay,
that's the foundation.
Like, sorry, I can't trust you anymore. You know, but it's like but you need to address that, and not sit up here and argue about who has the bigger crowd size or who is this or who's that. It's like, no, I believe in this. And I feel that I'm voting for XYZ because this is what I stand on. And this is aligned with my values and my belief system and my core value. And I feel like that is why politics are so triggering because nowadays it's like you're either this or you're that. And it's like your entire value system is aligned when in reality we're all like in the middle. Majority of people are there's a balance.
And the thing is, and that's why I feel like we get hung up on the names a lot of times. Like you're a Republican, you're a Democrat, you're independent, whatever, because you're not one. Because you likely agree with some of these viewpoints over here, and you agree with some of these viewpoints over here. But because again we're so tied to the label, it's like that representation sometimes is what now people see. It
now encompasses you, and to the point where you're like, I'm a liberal, and even though there's some liberal things that are like, but it's like I'm rolling with liberals because they, you know, it's pros and cons. Like I'm gonna take they take 10 things, I can lead a 2, but over there it's nothing that I really rep with. Like maybe 1, you know, so 1 versus 10, so I'm gonna go with over here. So it's like a numbers game, but it's just I don't know. I feel bad for the people that don't see eye to eye in marriages, and it's causing deeper problems. And our suggestion is just to like don't throw away the political parties, throw away all that stuff, and get to the heart of the matter, which is their belief system, their core value system. If you are concerned that you're married,
reassess that.
Reassess.
People do have the ability to change and have experiences, and so because of the certain experience, it has now shifted my viewpoint on this. But have a conversation about it,
and have a conversation about it, and again, respect that. Like if it, you know, certain things I don't. You know, I feel some type of way. I'm not going to get into it, but if that is something, if it's something that you can still live with, and that their values have changed, just respect it. Respect that, and then and also the next thing is to our next gem is to be curious. Be curious, right? Be curious without judgment, because that's important. Like, I want to sit down, I want to talk to you, like, okay, so like, why? Like, if Dabo came to me and was like, okay, you want to start a business, why? Like, what's in it? What is your business plan? What do you see for yourself? What's your vision? And he could easily be like, Memi, this is your 10th business that you started.
What's going to make this one
What's going to make this different, right? That's the judgment. We want him to leave the judgment out. We want the judgment out, and we want you to just be curious and ask questions and dig and get to know why I'm in this phase of my life. Like, is it you can talk to me and know if it's temporary. Like, you can talk to me and know, because I'm very skittish, right? So I'm gonna be like, well, I saw it on Instagram.
It looked really fun.
And they said Amazon FBA will make me a millionaire in a week. So if you hear me talk like that, then you're like, Memi, hit the road, Jack. Definitely went down that path. Yeah. For sure. I for sure went down that path. But this is not that.
Of course you did. But I also think in that same token, right, it's like the not getting defensive, right? So when you are now being asked questions, when there is no judgment, are you able to receive the questions that you're being asked without judgment?
That's part of the maturity, right? And that's the person that's transitioning. That's their part, like, because everybody has a responsibility. So it's the partner that's not in the transition right now to ask those questions without judgment, and then it's the person that is transitioning or going through the changes to not be defensive, to just be able to have that conversation in a way like, okay, he's coming to me or she's coming to me because she cares and she loves me. She sees I'm about to take a big risk. Yeah. So she just wants to have a better understanding. And I also want him to understand. I also want him to or her to be on board with this, with this change, you know.
And I think lastly, I would say is like, make sure that you give space, but not too much space. Yeah. Right. And I think that goes back to everything that we're saying.
It's like with the space, like giving space, the way I look at it is like, if you're supposed to, if this person is in a, like how I was grieving, right? Like let's say it's a more negative transition and not like entrepreneurship or faith, right? It's like I'm going through some things right now and I need space, or I want to do an eat, pray, love thing and I want to just travel for a month, right? Like, or solo travel for a month. It's like allow your partner that space, allow them to have that room to figure out what that transition looks like, right? Like, you notice things are changing. You notice things are going in a different direction from what you guys planned when you got married. So it's like, let them figure it out. Yeah. Like, you don't have to be like, why are you doing this? Like, like, you ain't used to do that, or you didn't used to act like this, or you didn't used to do. It's like, let them breathe and let them also, because so much of like this life, our marriage journey is figuring out ourselves. Absolutely. Right? Like, I was telling my brother-in-law and my sister-in-law that marriage is the craziest mirror that you will ever have. Like, the image that it reflects is like, you will go into a marriage thinking like, I'm this, I'm that, I'm this, I'm
top tier.
You were like, I'm nothing. Bottom line. Nothing is like the way he should be so honored that he got me.
In my presence. You are in my presence.
Like,
thank me every day.
Act like it. You feel me? Like, you are blessed. However, when they started shaking that table,
Mr. Krabs out here, like, what is going on?
Yeah. When like I used to my big mirror moment was me thinking I was an amazing listener. Thinking that I like, because my friends call me and tell me all their stuff they're going through, and I can just listen and give advice. That would be we were having a conversation. He'd be like, "Tell me what I just said."
Ooh, dang, hit you with that? You couldn't answer? That's crazy.
I'll say something completely different.
He'd be like,
"That's not what I said," and I'd be like, "But that's not what I said." Ooh. So it's like that was shocking. Like, understanding that active listening is different. Active listening. Because I'm sitting here thinking of like, well,
hold on a second. Let me write that down because that is incorrect.
And so, like, once we started doing that really helped our communication, because I would hear something completely through my lens of like, oh, he's trying me. That is how everything I heard is through. Oh, why is he playing with me?
So he's playing with me.
So I would hear that lens, and then
am I a mug?
And then I'll twist it to be as vicious as it could possibly be. And he'd be like, repeat. I'm like, you just called me. And he'd be like, what?
He's like, how did we get here?
Didn't say that. Not what I meant. Not quite. You heard something totally different. Yeah. And he would say it again. I'd be like, oh. Okay.
All right, I get it.
Yeah, that's better. You should have said that the first time.
I did, actually.
But I did. But sorry, we got off topic. Yeah. But all that to say, like, the giving someone that space to sort of learn themselves, learn this, like, okay, I'm not who I thought I was. Yeah. I'm a little different. And then especially for us, like, getting married young, and I know we say it a lot, but we had to kind of like develop our womanhood inside of a marriage, which is different for people who get married later on in life. You kind of already know who you are. You kind of already have some sort of like identity outside of your marriage before you get married. But for us, a lot of our identity is built into our marriage. It's just how we are, because we were I was 20.
You were 25.
I was 25. You were 27. So we were fairly young. Yeah. So, like, discovering ourselves in this marriage, sometimes you just need you need room to breathe, and you need room to kind of find yourself. You need room to kind of figure out who you are, how you want to represent, how you want the world to view you, how you want to view yourself, how you want your kids to talk about you. Like, it's so much that goes into it, into this whole, like, you know, build a woman.
Build a man, build a woman.
Build a woman phase of life.
Yes.
So it is a lot of transition, and it is a lot that goes into it. But I think for us, like, how we are maneuvering it is bringing our husbands along on the ride. They respected us. They respect our changes and respecting the journey, and we respect theirs as well. Absolutely. And being not being defensive when they ask questions or when they're curious,
and staying curious.
Exactly. And then taking that space when we need it, and receiving it, receiving the space.
And I think lastly, like, to kind of close this out, not even lastly, but in summation, I think that recognizing that no season is permanent, right? And that's not to say a season needs to go from good to bad, right? It can go from good to great. It can go from better to best or whatever. But if you are open, if you are flexible, if you are malleable, you are always open to whatever happens, right? And having the understanding that we're in this together, even though we might not always be eye to eye on everything, but because we're in a partnership, because we're in this together, we are going to continue this climb. We are going to continue to fight another day. We are going to continue to navigate these transitions together. You know, nothing is permanent.
No, it's not.
You know, nothing is permanent, but setting yourself up and having that understanding just allows you to be flexible when these changes happen.
Yeah, definitely. And this part, and I think it makes the ride so much better. It makes the climb so much better. Absolutely. The journey so much better. It's not always, and so much people talk about, oh, marriage is hard, and it's like, it's work, but it's fun work. It's good work. It's fulfilling work.
Yeah,
so
absolutely. So, we love you guys. We thank you guys all the time for everything that you guys, for even just rocking with us to the end of this episode. As always, we want you to click that like button, subscribe, and tune into another episode of Chats from the Peak.
Bye.